We're all set. Hello, everybody. We are really excited. I think a few people will end up coming in as their classes end and what have you. Anastasia Samaras and I are here to greet you for our research panel today as part of our collaboration for Faculty Teaching Excellence, our grant with the University of Management and Technology in Lahore. And we're videoing this today, so we'll have a link to put on our website. But we're also live streaming it, so if you happen to be on WhatsApp or with your colleagues back at UMT, it will be on Facebook, on our Facebook page. So I want to introduce Jen LeBron, who is our moderator for this panel, and she's going to take it away with introducing our wonderful panelists. And after our panel presentations and discussions, we'll be opening up for further discussion. So I'm just going to say thank you so much on behalf of Anastasia and me, and on behalf of the grant for your being here. We are tremendously grateful. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Welcome, everyone. As Dr. Fox said, my name is Jennifer LeBron. I have met our Pakistani fellows this weekend, but for those of you who don't know me, I'm a doc student here at George Mason University. It's my privilege and delight to moderate this panel. This is the second time that we've done this with this grant, and it's always a really lively discussion, so I really appreciate our panelists being here. There are bios of our panelists on the table, so I won't spend any time introducing them. I'm actually going to let them introduce themselves, and starting with an opening question about what their research agenda is and how that has sort of evolved over their careers and their education as a way to sort of introduce yourselves to the group. So if you wouldn't mind, Dr. Kamansky.
Well, let me thank you for being part of the panel. I had the pleasure of meeting the first cohort, and I learned a lot about your university and some of the things that you're trying to do. My comments, of course, are contextualized about my background, so I want to say a few things about that and then share the floor. I am an industrial and organizational psychologist, long phrase. I study human behavior in the workplace, and we try to answer the very important question of why people behave that way in the workplace. I often say to many people, the good news is we know a lot of why people behave the way they do in the workplace, but we don't always know what to do about it. So when we study good things like creativity and innovation, we know how to do a little bit, but not always. But when we study bad things like unsafe behaviors, I'm currently involved in cybersecurity leadership, cybersecurity threats, we still have a lot of learning to do. So I trained at Purdue University in my field. I spent about 30 years at the Ohio State University, a very large university in the Midwestern part of the United States. Came to George Mason in 1995. I must say, when I came here in 1995, it was a medium-sized school. Now we are a very big school, over 35,000 students by head count. So I've seen the school grow. I have enjoyed being in the psychology department and mentor graduate students in psychology. But I'm currently housed in the business school here at George Mason. So I'm a professor of psychology and business. I teach mostly in the graduate professional programs, currently teaching in the cybersecurity master's program within the School of Business. My research interests are quite varied. They include trying to understand leadership, trying to understand the role of development in developing future leaders, but also trying to understand the way the systems of an organization can affect individuals, groups, and the larger organization as well. So I'm interested in modeling and understanding performance, understanding and modeling behavior. Let me pause there and yield the floor to my colleagues. I'll come back to any of those topics that you'd like to cover. Sir.
Okay. Yeah, I'm Matthias Renz. I'm also very thankful to be on this panel here. I'm quite new here. I I'm from Germany, as you can hear that from my accent. I grew up in Munich, and there I was at the Ludwig Maximilians University. First, I studied electrical engineering and worked then at the German Aerospace Center in the field of robotics, and then moved to the database group in the Ludwig Maximilians University. And this database group, we had the focus on data mining, data analytics, knowledge discovery, data, and there I worked a lot with very heterogeneous data types, and the idea is to have, if you have this large amount of data, trying to get some patterns or to identify some patterns out of this data, and to trying to get some knowledge out of this data. So I mainly my fields were on similarity search and on data mining, basically. And this year, at the beginning of this year, I moved to George Mason University. I got the position as an associate professor, and I'm currently teaching in the computational and data science department, which is a new department. And there we are currently also building a data lab, which is a new initiative of this department, but which is on the College of Science. And the idea is to have a kind of platform where students can work on data. So we are having there a lot of different data sets and different opportunities where students can be brought to real, also industrial projects, and the idea is to get a better connection between the students, or between academia and industry, and to prepare the students better for real industrial applications. Because usually when they are finishing the university, they are going to the industry, then they are faced with the problem that they have to deal with raw data, and this is a big problem. So there's a big gap, and we realized that this gap has to be filled in the industry. People are searching for students that are already prepared for this kind of problems. So when I was I got some of experiences from building these kind of labs. When I worked in Munich, I was consultant for the Volkswagen AG. I helped them to build a data lab in Munich, and based on this, I founded a data science lab at the university in Munich, and now I'm here to do this. Quite similar things. And yes, that's all. That's enough.
Hello, thank you for having me, Jen. My name is Meagan Call-Cummings. I'm an assistant professor here of qualitative methods at the College of Education and Human Development, and I work closely with the Center for International Education. A lot of my research is focused internationally, so not in the United States, but also in the United States as well. What kind of led me to this place? I grew up living all over the United States. Much of my formative time as a teenager was spent in Cairo, Egypt, where I saw a lot of inequity, but I was on the privileged side of that inequity. And so that led me to have a lot of questions about who I am in the world and what I should be doing with my life to figure out why there is inequity in the world, essentially. And that led me to many different places throughout my life, but I've ended here at George Mason University, where I'm a new professor. I just finished my PhD at Indiana University, where I focused on education policy and also inquiry methodology. So I typically focus my research by conducting participatory action research, so working with people who typically are not seen as researchers and who are often not included in the research process, or what I call the knowledge production process. So for example, a research project I just completed was done with 52 high school students. and they were the co-researchers. And they produced knowledge about their own lives and their own everyday lived experiences. So this is the type of research that I engage in typically. And if you have questions about that or about other qualitative research, I'm here to talk with you about that.
Wonderful, thank you all. So, you have given us an idea of sort of the breadth and depth of what you bring to the panel. I'm wondering, given your diverse fields, how do you sort of engage in your community, your scholar community? How do you get your research ideas in order to engage with that community? So what are some of the pressing topics in your field, and how have you sort of tackled them?
Perhaps someone else should start.
And as you start, if you wouldn't mind speaking up, since we are also streaming this, people are hearing you, but it would really benefit if you wouldn't mind using your educator voices. Thank you.
So, yes.
Go ahead.
So, my experience, I think basically the most kind of research ideas you can get is if you have active involvement in conferences and for example, also taking part in program committees of conferences, but also trying to organize conferences. Networking here is a very important part. Also going to the conferences, talking to people, and trying to be very open-minded in the research directions. So in my case, basically I'm very focused on interdisciplinary research areas because there's a great opportunity. And but there are also some challenges because you have to talk to people that don't have the background you have. So, but it's a very interesting field where you can get a lot of new research ideas. I mean, basically, you start if you're approaching those interdisciplinary groups. You start with very basic. Research applications where you just apply that what you already have done in the past, but then you come very fast to the point where you get new ideas where there are also challenges in your field. So it's very important to take this opportunity to approaching those different groups. So I'm working with biology people, archaeologic people, medical people, and so on. So, but you have to be very open-minded in the research directions. And I mean, in my case, it's quite easy to do this because as a data miner, I'm just working with data. I don't care really about the data, if it's text data or where it comes from. I don't care where it comes from. Yes, but I mean, my business is to take data and to find any patterns. So, and directions. It's a very broad field. So I'm very easy in this interdisciplinary research.
So being open-minded, seeking out other partners in other fields.
Right, and then also have an understanding too that these people have a different background. So you have to start with the basics and first have to learn about the terminology.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
And so different things have the same name, and sometimes yes, it's the same name. They mean different things. And this is a big challenge. So, and there you have to spend a lot of time, and you have to be patient on this. But finally, it works out. So, yes.
Okay, great. Dr. Call-Cummings, do you have any thoughts on where you get your research ideas?
Yeah, and my problem is usually I have too many ideas and I can't do all of them. I don't have the money or the energy or the time. My focus, as I've said, is inequity or equity, and as we all know, there's a lot of that in the world, and so my challenge is really to figure out what small piece of that I can kind of carve off and do and have a small impact. I started out, and I still kind of have in my mind, I want to change the world, right? Well, I have to figure out the small pieces that I can change or that I can help change. So I have lots of ideas usually, and it usually comes down to, okay, what can I feasibly do right now or in the next year or 2 years or 5 years? And that's when it comes down to finding partners who might already be doing something similar, or maybe other professors or researchers who are working in a location that I want to, so I can have access more quickly, but maybe do something a little bit different than what they're doing. So kind of complementary work. So yeah, just kind of similar lessons, but applied a little bit differently. So networking, getting to know what your colleagues are working on, and what is kind of coming down the pike, so that as opportunities arise, you're kind of the first person there to say, I'll do it. And that's what I did here. When I first arrived here, I had meetings with different people and said, remember my name. I'm interested in what you're doing. So email me if something else comes up. So that's one strategy that I do.
Yes, right. I want to say, I think it's important to find directions or groups that are already working together, and where you see that your expertise can help them somehow. And this is how you can find good partners.
But can I just add, sorry, one more thing. I would also say I try not to be afraid of doing things on my own. If I see something that I feel really passionate about, and maybe I don't get funding for it, or other people don't really seem to care about it, but I think it's really interesting or important, I will do it. And I will do it on my own, and I might find a little tiny bit of money here, and maybe I have to pay for my own airplane ticket there. But if it's important to me and if I'm passionate about it, I think it's important enough to follow up with.
Yes, you have to invest.
Dr. Kowalski, how do you engage in your field? What
I
are your ideas?
think we're either fortunate or lucky. We have on the panel people at different stages of their career cycle. So that might be an observation, where you are in your career cycle, beginning, middle, or in my case, later. I think that a couple of points resonate with me. Staying connected professionally. I'm actively engaged in 4 international professional societies. Read widely. I still read the technical journals. I get, as a benefit of those memberships, 17 journals. 17 journals. Read widely. Build out your social contacts at international conferences. Build those out. There's no doubt that you can be stimulated by any number of these tools and techniques. But as mentioned, there's always this opportunity cost issue. If I do this, I cannot do that. Depending on where you are in your career, you might have different views. My view is to try to do research with impact in mind. My view is that research is not only about the investigator, but it's about the people who might benefit from your investigation. In my view, this means understanding the demand side for your scholarship. The demand side might be the particular journal you want to publish in. The demand side might be the particular policymakers you want to affect. The demand side would be any of the clients that you try to satisfy. I'm very interested in impact. I'm very interested in impact. So when I study a phenomenon, I want to know why it happens, but also what difference does it make. So I'm interested in individual performance. I'm interested in team performance. I'm interested in multi-team performance, which is a new topic for me. I can get into that if you want. And I'm interested in systems performance. Why are some organizations more effective the way they are? And then I try to translate that knowledge based on theory and good data. I'm passionate about evidence-based management.
Yes.
How do we make decisions in the world of work? Can I offer some evidence that would guide management? So some of my needs at my stage in my career might be a little different. I'm not a startup. I hope I'm not a declining industry sector. So stay engaged wherever you are. Find the right methodology for doing that.
So you were talking previously about collaboration. So our fellows here are endeavoring to engage in collaborative research with Mason faculty. I'm wondering if you could share some success stories of research teams and partnerships that have been really fruitful, and also maybe some lessons learned from teams and research partnerships that did not go as smoothly as one would have hoped. And sort of talk about how you would want to be approached if you were being approached by a potential research partner. What is it that you're looking for in a partnership, and how has that sort of influenced the success or failure of your partnerships?
Sure. Well, as has been pointed out, I'm a little more starry-eyed maybe than my colleagues here. I don't know. But as I have mentioned, as a participatory action researcher, I often partner with people who are not typically or traditionally recognized as researchers. So I typically work with community members, perhaps parents in a school district or students themselves. So my challenges in those kind of environments is to often reposition myself, as a researcher or as someone who has a PhD or is in a university setting. We are automatically considered knower, right, with a capital K. We come in the room and everybody, looks to you as the expert. Well, in participatory action research, it's a time to still be that expert, right? As a methodologist, I do recognize that I know more than most people in the room about qualitative research, but I don't know as much about the people's everyday lived experiences. I don't know as much about inequity and being on the other side of the table of that. So being able to step back is really important, and allow my co-researchers to really take the reins in the research is really important in the work that I do.
So this is a very important question. I think that most joint ventures fail.
Yeah.
So many efforts at collaboration do not work out very well. I think part of it has to do with the right partners. And you don't know in advance who the right partners are. But there's always this element of perspective taking. As you try to engage with other people, you must sort of understand their perspective on things. And toward that end, you need to know the passion and the research interests of those people that you would be approaching. On the other hand, you have to have a value proposition. I've already mentioned we're always too busy. Why should I work with you? Not to be selfish, but if I work with you, I can't work with Sophie. So you have to have a clear idea of what you can bring to the table, and do that discussion in a manner that's appropriate. It's appropriate. So not knowing the person you're approaching is going to be difficult to make that arrangement. What kind of value proposition can you offer? Well, you need to be credible. Sounds simple. How can you be credible? Well, let me count the ways. Competence. You have to have some evidence of competence. How do you do that? I'm not sure in each case. Portfolio. What have you accomplished? As a startup, you may not have a lot, but you have to have something that shows that you can actually do something and do something well. And then, as already mentioned, it's terribly important to credibility to have something called social capital. Okay? Who can say appropriately good things about you? Who knows about your capabilities? Because it'll come out. Especially as you move toward a more senior person as a partner, they already know who knows about you. If you're starting at the ground level with new startups, if you will, to use that metaphor, that may not be true, but you have to approach this with your eyes open. The other advice I give is just managing expectations. We have many examples of disagreements that stem from ambiguity of the nature of the work to be done, the nature of the division of labor, the nature of the credit to be awarded. A lot of these things are very traditional difficulties, but they become more complicated if you're working with people in different disciplines and in different areas. So in addition to the language and terminology, in addition to traditions, you have to be aware that working together can be difficult. Not to say it can't be done. I'm writing with people around the country and around the world. I'm in a writing project with a colleague in the United Arab Emirates. So we write electronically and we meet at a national conference and we get work done at that level. So you can work across the world, but under the right circumstances. It certainly helps if you're both committed to the project for the same reasons. So passionate about injustice, and that gets you through a lot. Passionate about data mining, and that gets you through a lot. But these are complicated spaces. As you manage the project, people are managing their careers, and they're managing their jobs, and they're managing their lives. And there's room for disagreement and room for difficult times. But that said, I think it's a worthwhile attempt to seek out others and collaborate, especially across disciplines. I'll stop there.
So an optimist, but a realist sensibility when it comes to collaboration. Yes.
So in my experience, I mean, it's it's not only a matter of when you're searching for collaborators. It's not only a matter of searching the right people. It can be also the problem of searching the right problem. So and the problem, in particular in the interdisciplinary field, where the people don't really know what you can do, there's the problem of maybe wrong expectations. So, for example, in Munich we started a collaboration with medical people. So the doctor came and we presented what we can do and what data mining is. We explained them what it is, and then they said, okay, we are working on a specific problem and we have the data. Here's the data. Now work on the data and tell me news. So yes, we tried. We tried. I mean, before we told them or tried to make them clear that we just can find patterns in the data, but we are not experts in that field. We cannot interpret these patterns, and we don't know what to find. So in particular in data mining, that's the problem. You have to know what you're searching for in order to get real knowledge out of the data. But he couldn't answer our question what we are looking for, or what we have to look for. So we started some data mining approaches on the data, and we found patterns, and we found some knowledge, or we thought it's relevant knowledge. Finally, it was relevant knowledge. The problem was that the medical people, they said, oh, all what you have found is boring for us because we already know it. So at least we could show that the methods worked well. But yes, this was a failure. The collaboration stopped because they couldn't come up with specific questions. So there's always this difficulty, and you never know. Yes, I mean the people. It's a matter of the people also, and their understanding and their willingness to come to your level and so on. But also the problems. Before you start your research, you never know if the research will be successful or not. What I'm saying is, or want to say is, but you have to be open to this. I mean, yeah, of course, research, you cannot only have success in this, in the research. At least, even if it fails, you know, okay, with these methods, you couldn't find anything, so you have to do it in another way.
So finding the right problem is one of the challenges in collaboration. And Dr. Matsu, you said finding, sort of an avenue for your research. I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about funding difficulties, so finding the money, and not just funding in money sense, but in the time too, of engaging in research. So I'm not sure that all of our panelists here know about some of the funding structures that exist in the U.S., so if you want to talk about some major funders, NSF or others that may have, how you engaged in that process, but how you were able to craft a proposal or craft your questions in order to seek out funding from individuals. Any thoughts on that?
Let me offer a couple thoughts. First, a lot of scientists in the area of organizational studies rely on partners in the organizational space, and they don't require extramural funding to do a lot of investigations. But writing a proposal is very expensive time-wise, and it's once again, because everyone is so busy, you have to be very cognizant of the fact that the more prestigious the funding agency, the more difficult it will be to get an award. So in the United States, National Institutes of Health, in the United States, National Science Foundation, tend to be very, very difficult places to get funding. Having some help identifying smaller funding sources might be something you would consider, given that you have a problem that might be interesting. So again, it goes back to alignment. And so the Department of Defense may have some programs. The Army Research Institute in the United States may have some programs. The State Department may have some programs. So finding an appropriate source. But proposal writing can be quite tedious. Proposal reporting can be quite tedious. So even if you have a very good idea and a fundable idea, be prepared for the work involved in seeking that funding. Many of these funding sources would like to see some evidence that you already have some traction in that space. So it's that common lament. How do you get a job if you haven't had a job? How do you get a grant if you haven't had a grant? And I think there's no easy answer. We have some implied here. Working with others who have had grants and becoming a protege or a subcontractor or co-PI is a way to build up your credibility. But there again, your senior partner has to see that you're adding value. You're not just an expense to the grant. So those are some ideas about going to market for money if you're trying to do that. I should mention in the business school we're seeking money from companies. They're difficult sources for money. They are very, very concerned about their return on investment. So we have some modest grant money from companies in the business school here at George Mason, but it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody. Some other ideas from the table in terms of grant getting.
I have different experiences because in Munich applying for funding is quite different than from US, what I figured out. So in Germany it's mainly, in particular the government funding, you're writing your proposal mainly by yourself. Okay, so you have an idea and write up the proposal and send it. Here it's different. Here you have to search for collaborators and you have to do it in a team, which makes it more interesting because you can share information with other people, but which is also challenging. And so basically, yes, I think to find good funding opportunities first, or to get an idea in which direction you should apply for funding, you should have a kind of sense of the trend. What is trendy? What does the people, the industry, or the government wants to have in the future? You have to look in the future and see what are the trends. And currently, health analytics is quite is coming up and so on. So if you have an idea of what is trendy, then you can think of how your research, maybe even if you thought of a different research direction before, maybe you can shift your research direction a little bit into that direction, which is trendy. In particular, just in order to have some trendy buzzwords in your proposal, which helps. So generally, if you're, and it's also applying for funding, it's different if you apply for government funding or for industrial funding. So trying to apply for government funding, I have good experiences in building this working in the interdisciplinary field and searching for different people with different backgrounds, and because there you find really interesting problems because you can merge your data, for example, my data mining stuff with some really useful things. Data mining itself is
So,
it's hard to solve. Yes.
so finding trends in your field could be from reading widely, I'm hearing, from networking,
Yes.
From-
Yes. Reading the news or
reading the news.
yes, and also reading the report from NSF and
Seeing what your funders have recently funded.
yes,
Yes.
yes.
Okay.
And it's also good to try to be involved in to serve as a panelist in for example, for NSF. I was very lucky because just when I came after 2 months, I was invited in a panel, which was very great for me because I hadn't any idea about US proposals. So there I learned a lot, and there you can also in the panel discussion in NSF, for example, you get some ideas what NSF wants to have or in which direction NSF wants to go. Yeah, for example, they said big data is out.
That's why you were there.
Yes.
No.
Dr. Cummings, do you have any thoughts about funding? that you
Yeah,
wanna share?
one quick thought. A piece of advice that has been really useful for me is if you're interested in a specific area or a specific topic, look at people's CVs, people whom you respect or who are doing similar work. You may not need to actually make a phone call and have a sit-down conversation with them. Simply look at their CVs and see where they've gotten funding. Look at the beginning of their work. If you're like me and I'm kind of at the beginning of my career as well, look at what they got and what they applied to at the beginning of their career versus if you're in the middle or more senior. That has been really useful for me. So if I see that a particular person, for example, got a Spencer Foundation grant, then I may say, okay, number one, that's a place to go for this topic. And number two, maybe when I'm in the process, I could reach out to that person to maybe mentor me through the process, to send drafts or whatever. I think that's pretty accepted across the board in terms of reaching out for help. I don't know, at least in my field, typically, we're not very holding things close and we're not going to disclose what we wrote. We're pretty helpful generally, so that is really useful. That's something that I've found useful.
And final thoughts about?
Yes, a couple of thoughts, and Meagan triggered this. I'm aware of at least one college here at George Mason where faculty, especially young faculty, are encouraged to seek out senior people with a draft of their proposal for funded research and ask, hopefully and helpfully, for comments. You can imagine how this might work. It works well. The more senior person gets to know the more junior person. The junior person gets good advice. And occasionally it promotes collaboration. The senior person might say, I'm working in this area. What about a partnership? So that's one idea. The other idea is around institutional resources. Matthias mentions cultural differences, Germany, US. There are major cultural differences around the funding agencies. So here at George Mason, we do have an Office of Sponsored Programs, an agency within the school, university, to turn to for advice. And they can help you with sorting through the funding possibilities. So you don't have to go to the web, you don't have to go to NSF across programs to find a possible home for your work. They can actually help you do that. So it may be that your university has some version of this, but it's a way for you to get advice very expeditiously and allow you to be much more efficient, because you do want your work to be of potential interest to the particular funding agency. So a couple of ideas.
Great.
Yeah, I want to add that I think it's also important, you don't have to hesitate to contact the funding agencies. It's very, very good if you do it just if, at the time where you have an idea, just don't be shy. Just try to approach them and telling them what you plan to have, what kind of a proposal you're thinking of. And they will tell you, and they give you hints how to do it, how to shape the proposal, in which direction the direction is trend or not. Yeah.
But to this point, there's often deadlines, so do that well in advance of the
Right,
deadline.
of course.
Yeah, I mean,
before you start writing a proposal, because
yeah.
they can give you some advice in which direction you should focus.
Well, this is great advice, but remember that the NSF point of contact also has terms of duties. So you may build a relationship with one person, and then they go back to their home base. So again, relationship management and social capital goes a long way. Let you go.
So I want to open the, I have a couple more questions, but I want to give everybody an opportunity to answer it. So if you could stand up and introduce yourself, and then if you could speak very loudly for your question so we can get it on our Facebook streaming. The technology here is wonderful. So I see a hand over here. If you want to stand up, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
My name is Khalid Arabi.
Stand up, hand up.
My name is Khalid Arabi, and I represent the School of Professional Advancement from University of Management and Technology. We belong to a country where there is very less research culture. So, whereas on the other hand, in the universities, I would say there is an army of researchers being right now developed. I mean, our HEC and our university, they are actively participating, actively doing such activities there for which we people are being trained to do research. So my question to each panelist is if they can guide us, if they can tell us any strategy that in the area where our government is sleeping, our industry is sleeping, there is no research is being demanded from the government, no research is being demanded at the industry level, well, there is a research somehow being done in the university, but that is still to be boosted up. So how can a researcher like us, we are researchers evolving into the PhD and everything, so how can we survive and how can we live in this culture if there is any strategy from the side?
Great. So how can you create a research culture where
Just
one
to
may
add
not
one-
exist?
Just to add one thing the same.
Yes.
My name is Meagan from the School of Business and Economics. Just to use the Dr. Richard's comments, how to make our research demand-oriented rather than simply doing research for in the way.
Yeah. Okay.
Let me offer a couple of comments and then share. You often only work as hard as the environment demands of you. So if you are a manager of an academic unit, you try to create a research-oriented culture. That means that you have to align business processes and practices. So what kind of incentive structures, what kind of reward structures are there operating at the local level? Of course, your dean or top management has to support this. But here at George Mason, we have centers of excellence around research, but it's largely because there's a normative culture. The other possibility when you have a startup is to invest in visiting scientists. Very often having someone of credibility and capability coming in to demonstrate this kind of approach is one thing that you might do as well. So you need the internal culture, but you can also bring in individuals who do well. The idea of doing research with impact is difficult. Our business school has advisory boards, so it's an engagement strategy for the business community. Our business school has alumni connections. It's another engagement strategy, so you can listen to the marketplace. What's broken out there? What do they need? What do they need? So quite apart from what we focus on, given that you have teaching and service and research obligations like we do, you do need that culture that says research is very important. It's part of our mission. Perhaps other ideas here on building
I
culture.
just want to underline this. It's very important to become aware of the demand. What is really, where's the money behind? Okay, well, what are the industry people are looking for? What kind of directions are really demanding? Also in the government, you have to find the real directions, and then you have to try to shift your research in that direction.
But let me segue to Meagan. You know, I think of impact on future scholarship, impact on practice, impact on methodology, and impact on policy.
Right, and I would say from a real kind of boots on the ground perspective, like if I was in your situation, I would think about trying to create demand. Start in really small ways. Create, develop some social capital, some specific partners that are really friendly to research or that understand or that get it, why research is important. Perhaps if you're in education, you have a really good relationship with one school that really gets that research is important for improving practice. This is just one example. So you do really well with this school and whatever, improve achievement or improve how the teachers are teaching or things like that to become this great example of look what we did with research, right? And then that kind of grows and foments. So I think that's probably applicable to most disciplines in terms of maybe starting small and then creating those shining examples of how research can kind of improve our lives.
And so that,
Starting with the low-hanging fruits, I would say, yes, but the easy things that you can do quickly and but has a high
And
impact.
see impact, yeah.
Yes.
so really thinking about research is not just having an audience within an academic community, but thinking of it as public scholarship. So how would you communicate to the public or other individuals outside of, so a wider audience would be another way to create that.
I would like to add. My name is Ali Chauhan. I'm the Director for Global Management. It's a global MBA that the University of Management Technology is launching next year. University students are going to be traveling to 3 different countries, 4 different countries, spending a semester. I just want to add and thank all of you for the panel and everything. And second is this, that a lot of work that UMT has done for research and promoting research has been 3 international conferences that we have already had in our university, were sponsored by our rector and the advisory board that you're saying, and they really help. This is the second group, so the 20 people already came, 20 are here now, and everybody's very much interested in finding out that how can we bring value. I really appreciated that comment that you made about, and we are bringing value to the American universities, whoever we collaborate with, because in our country, if my age group is here, in the 40s and 30s, but the ones who are coming up in the 20s and 30s, it's a very different kind of a mindset, and those young boys and girls are really becoming very young entrepreneurs, owners of businesses, and the things are changing, and they are demanding this. They are demanding, because of the internet and everything that is available in the world, they're saying, where is our academia? What are they doing? And that is where I think that all of us, I was listening to all of you, you said the trending, you said about the passion, and Dr. Richard said about creating value. So we can already take that, and what we would like, and personally I would like, is talk to people over here and say, we have the data, we have the information, we have a different field which is new to explore. It hasn't been explored before. So let's get together and try to work something where we can explore those areas and find some new trends and new things that are happening in the world.
Great, just another opportunity. I want to, do you have a comment?
Yes, I think in this, for example, that's why I'm very in favor of these lab ideas. Because the labs, I'm building the lab in order to be loud, in order to get some interest from the industry. Because in the lab, I found it as creating a lab is a kind of, you're bridging the gap a little bit more between academia and the industry, for the real problems. And this is very important. And building a lab, you can advertise also your work in a little bit different way than you can just do it if you're just working in a department. And that's important to trying to involve as many different groups in this lab structure.
I mean, don't you think the culture plays a big part in all the research that goes on? I think the culture plays a very important part. Where you are, I mean, you're doing something with somebody in Arab Emirates. It's a totally different environment, and I mean, sure.
So absolutely, yeah. So questions?
Thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Talha Zubair Ahmed Khan from School of Professional Advancement in University of Technology. I'm also the head of Case Research Unit.
which we have established in School of Professional Advancement. Our work is original in a way that we are tremendously striving for converting the students' projects and thesis into case studies for students to learn from, because most of the text that we read is contextualized in Western countries, so we need something to learn from the best practices within our own country. This is one of the projects that we are doing. In addition to one more thing, and it's specific to Dr. Meagan, the question is that a lot of focus is towards the quantitative side, because that's perhaps easy for people to understand at start, because it deals with numbers, and they can say, yeah, they're being very objective. But we are now moving towards the subjective domain, in a sense that the recent research paper that we are writing talks about the social materiality about the practice and industry, as Mr. Renz also talked about, in business education. And it's a phenomenological study, and we are in a process of conducting these interviews. If you can share with us how can we nurture this culture of qualitative research in addition to the quantitative research, because people are not very much familiar with it, and text that is related to, we don't have very good specialized people there who can share the knowledge. We invite speakers. We have very good faculty in our own university. They come to our lectures and they give their knowledge about qualitative research. What extra steps we can do to promote this culture?
Great. Well, first of all, I would say join the club with, the people fighting for qualitative research to be taken seriously, So we're in it together. We're in the same boat. And really it's just, step by step, having people take courses that are qualitative in nature. I mean, I have some students here, and they can attest to the fact that they took a quantitative class last semester, and so they're thinking about validity in a really specific way, and this does not fit that way, And so it's really just little by little getting those 20 and 30-year-olds into the classroom that I'm sure you're doing really, really well. It sounds like you're doing great work. And just kind of generationally having them come up. But also what I said to Mr. Arabi was related to this as well, is providing really good examples for how qualitative research benefits the community, benefits even business or policy, for example. Just having those good examples and publishing them widely, not only among those of us in the academy, right? But for example, my dissertation, I put it on a website and I have teachers go to it. So using research and forming relationships in real locations like schools to say, this is research that you can use and it's good research and it's valid research. So we can also have like a 5-hour conversation together somewhere else. And I'll come to Pakistan and it'll be fantastic. I love it. So, yeah.
Let me piggyback on this. You operate at several levels. One is the young scientist. What would motivate him or her to do casework or qualitative work? The good news is, at least the American journals, the Western journals do respect, in business at least, qualitative work. But you're at another level when you talk about building an institution. You have managerial responsibilities. A case in point, our business school is located in Northern Virginia. If you think of the industry sectors here, we're not in the financial world. If we were in Los Angeles, we'd be in entertainment. If we'd be in Las Vegas, it would be gambling. If we'd be in the Midwest, it would be manufacturing. We are in government contracting space, that industry sector. We are initiating a case writing program in the government contracting sector space. It does several things. We have an advisory group of corporations who are technology services providers. They would like us to be partners in this writing. We want to be famous as a school for case writing, but in this industry sector. Business policy and strategy says startups always fail, but it's better if you have a niche. It raises the probability that your business will survive. Perhaps in your case writing program, you might consider the niche that would favor your school because of the demand side. What are the industry sectors? Where are potential partners? So again, at the individual level, you want to honor and respect qualitative work, but as an institution, you might become quite famous for good qualitative work. So that's another level of conversation.
So we have I think I saw a hand over here. Yes?
My name is Sunny Bajwa. I am representing School of Business at University of Management Technology, and besides being a professor, I am Director for Internationalization. So university is having linkages with many universities like George Mason is one of them. We are receiving professors from all over the world. From Germany, we work with SES, Senior Expert in Services, they provide us experts. So officially you are very welcome to come to this. And I think I can put some offer on the table as well. Besides that, my question is, as he said that our research culture in Pakistan is at nascent stage, the beginning stage. Our university is putting lots of money in it as a research, lots of effort is going in it. Specific question is, what do you think are the salient features of a good doctoral program, especially in the management or social sciences? What should be the salient features? Thank you.
Features of doctoral work, yes. As a doctoral student, I can say, faculty who are willing to engage with students and to work with students in a way that helps them practice their research skills. So looking at your doctoral students as collaborators and partners in your own research is most welcome. I get to throw that in.
Well, this is a very big question. Being somewhat critical, not everyone is suitable as a mentor for a doctoral student.
Okay.
So at some universities in the United States, you can be promoted to associate professor and so forth, or you can be promoted to graduate faculty status. So I would take a hard look at your faculty assets and be realistic with regard to those people who have the skill, the will, and the drill. Secondly, it is clearly the case that a culture of graduate students makes a difference. So when I came to George Mason in psychology, I was able to build a research-oriented graduate culture, just as you need one at the faculty level. Sometimes it's small things, like propinquity, where they hang out, space, but sometimes it has to do with other things that you can nurture. The third thing is sort of the balance between domain knowledge and practice. How much knowledge, substantive knowledge do you need or want, and how much practice around scholarship do you need or want? It's always a balancing act, assuming you only have 3, 4, 5 years of student mentoring to do. And the third, I suppose, is how do you build connections? Even as young doctoral students, I feel good when they leave if they've published with someone from another university.
Right.
Right. So how can you build that? So I make use of international conferences with doctoral students to engage them in the larger arena of senior scholars, to build partnerships even as graduate students. So those are some things that I've thought about and I've tried to do in the past.
Other thoughts on doctoral program?
Yeah. So I think it's important to involve the students very early in their current research. I mean, basically, what I'm doing is in my classes, in the higher level classes, I'm trying also to bring in some, the basic knowledge they have to learn, but also to bring some fresh, very new research directions in the classes, and trying to attract the students and the people to work on this and to get familiar with this, and also trying to build some kind of doing some practical seminars where the students also have to write papers and are involved in the research. And then I think in this way, at least you can attract the students to work as a researcher and to continue on this. And I think this would be helpful.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to add. I think faculty is really key, and I would really agree with what Jen said about faculty that are willing and able to mentor effectively. And I would also say leadership is really important. So, all of you who are here, leadership that is open to kind of democratic procedures, and that is open to letting the faculty lead as well.
May I share something?
I think we have one more. Can you give me 1 second? I saw a hand over here. I don't want to lose anybody. Dr. Hobson.
Good afternoon. Rodney Thompson, faculty member at the College of Education Student Development here at Mason. I also want to respond to the questions because I've been working with a couple of you, some of you came to my class a couple nights ago as well. The question on research culture and also the doctoral program. It's a great question, Sami, actually, and I think Richard says it correctly that this is a big question. At least in the United States, there's still a study, there's still studies undergoing right now regarding what makes a great doctoral program. The Carnegie Institute and the Carnegie Study, for example, over the last 10 years has been really thinking about what it is about doctoral programs because they argue that there's a professional doctorate and there's a research doctorate, right? And so the question in my mind becomes, and also it speaks to this research culture question, which is research for what and for whom? As well as with the doctoral programs, I mean, it's doctoral programs for what and for whom? Just by virtue of the diversification and internationalization of our higher education institutions in the United States, they're different. It's not one size fits all. And so I think part of that question needs to be able to address those questions in the context of what you're preparing doctoral students for, but also for what kind of research culture you're trying to build in the country as well. And I would just add, as I said, is that I had the benefit, as I told Khalid and colleagues and friends who came to class, of going to Pakistan. And one of the things that we did 5 years ago was, it was a USAID funded, but it was a USAID funded to build research culture and capacity in the country. I don't know what happened to the initiative, but at least that was part of the developmental and the collaborative work that can take place. Use it as an opportunity to get funding.
Thank you.
First of all, my name is Ijaz Yusuf. I am assistant professor from School of Business and Economics and director Center for Supply Chain Research. First of all, I am thankful for the organizers who have provided me this opportunity to share with you. I am rightly agreed with the doctor that this research is for whom? And for whom, I think that is the total quality society. We should have to work for the good of humanity, for the good of mankind. And the main drivers are the prosperity and peace. And as you said, you are from the educational side, you can design the policy which can impart the knowledge within the students, and that students are going to add the value to the society, the value propositions. Similarly, the data mining helps us to determine the patterns. Patterns basically generate the behaviors, and these behaviors are the result of some structures. So if you identify the structures, with the help of the patterns, we can identify where the problems are. And that problematic areas can be the research topics, and ultimately they are going to help and boost the build peace within the humanity.
But again, the senior person speaking here. Young people have career aspirations. So even as you list your aspirations for your school and maybe for your program, you do have to be interested in what I would say product placement. What kind of positions are you preparing them for? As a scientist practitioner, I'm proud of the fact that science can inform practice and practice can inform science. So I try to prepare my protégés to be able to work both sides. They can make contributions in both sides. Agnostic as to what kind of organizations they might work in, or industry sectors. So I'm trying to prepare these people for everything and anything. But it's very difficult. You might have to decide in your country, for your school, if you had a vision of the next 5 graduates at the doctoral level in your department, where would you like to see them go? And what kind of impact would you like them to have? So you have to sort of think at several levels of analysis, the protege, the program, and the school, as you build out your doctoral program. One other point relative to mentoring. There's a journal called the Academy of Management, Learning, and Education. It's a well-regarded pedagogical journal. I seem to remember a qualitative study of you, professors, relative to your attitudes toward doctoral preparation. I seem to remember they had 5 prototypes, 5. Different professors had different mental models of what they should be doing as a mentor advisor. One model was to be a gatekeeper. Your task was to prevent bad people from graduating. Another model was to take the raw material and bring out the best. So what is that? It's sort of in between culture and values and so forth. But we often wonder, you know, when you mentor people, toward what end, and what is the style, what is the methodology. And I find that paper kind of instructive. This was American sample, Western sample. Well, I imagine even in your own school, you might do a little study of this. You know, what is it all about? What are you trying to do with your doctoral program? Just a thought.
We will do that when we finish our PhD, because otherwise they won't listen.
So give me 1 second, since we're on this topic, I'm wondering how your research impacts your teaching and your mentorship of graduate students. Can you talk a little bit about how you've bridged that gap between your research and your working with doctoral students or working in your teaching?
Well, as I said, as a participatory action researcher, there's really kind of an underlying epistemological or philosophical commitment that I really hold tight to, and that is this kind of co-construction of knowledge and the honoring of others' knowledge, right? The respecting of others' expertise. And so that I try very hard to have that bleed over into my teaching and my mentoring as well. So I have a statement on my syllabus that says we're learning together. Just the other night on Monday, we were going through, and I know my students are right there, so I know they'll nod their heads. We were talking about conducting observations, and one student said, "Oh, I did this other way." And when I shared that on my Tuesday night class, they said, "That was really useful." So, for me anyway, really kind of holding to what I believe about knowledge and having that impact my research, my teaching, and my mentorship. Staying true to that is really important to me.
Dr. Renz?
Yes. I think it matters the expectations you have from your students and what they should achieve. And I mean, I think you have to adapt your expectations to the qualification of the people or the mentality of the people and trying to get the best out of them instead of having your strict rules and see who can survive in these rules. This is one thing. The other thing is you have to trying to attract the people and saying or to motivate the people, showing them that what they are doing is very important and show them how important it is. So you have also to involve them in the projects you have. And this is a good thing. Also in the projects, for example, in interdisciplinary projects, it's very important for them to learn to talk with the other people and to see how the approaches they are developing can be applied to other disciplines and can help in other disciplines. So, I mean, you should involve this is how I handle my students and also undergraduate students, trying to involve them in all levels you are doing as a professor and you are acting. And I guess this is a good preparation.
Yeah, sure.
Like a lot of the ideas here, I guess one overarching question is just how many proteges can you deal with?
Exactly.
So you have to be somewhat practical about that. What's your bandwidth, if you will, in terms of mentoring and managing people? And all of us differ. Some professors can manage a larger group if they have a laboratory or a center. And if it's by understanding that all the research in the center will be thematic. So you have scalability. You can do that. I like the idea of having just the right engagement for the undergraduate, the master's, and the doctoral student. So there are stories here. George Mason's made a commitment to involve undergraduates in greater numbers in research and scholarship. It's part of their developmental experience. But clearly, research active and productive faculty are more so with good proteges, with good doctoral students in particular, or postdocs. A couple of other ideas. I think that it's terribly important that we teach evidence-based management. So I like to bring research and scholarship into the teaching of even business students. I think it would be terribly important for you to do so in almost any venue when you're mentoring and teaching. So that's a third idea. And the final, not a final one, but it strikes me that there's so much variety in research. You can possibly take on different students for different reasons. One student might be a very clever person at writing review papers, analytic papers. Another person is very clever at client engagement. Another person is very clever at methodology or data mining. So you can look to the strengths of the students and allocate those students to projects such that there's a return on that investment for the student. They feel validated as being part of the process, but you also have reduced agency costs. You don't have to supervise so closely. Just some thoughts.
I saw hands. Any other guests?
Just by the virtue of this seminar, we have the opportunity, and we are lucky that the representation of two countries, from Germany as well as from USA, is there. So again, talking to the research culture, my question is, in the respective of both countries, that what is the situation in your country respectively? Love for research at personal level, and love for career, and then doing research for the sake of the career. So which one is predominant in your own countries? Which one is leading? I mean, just an idea. We want an idea about that.
I'm sorry, which one comes first, research or?
Love for research, personal level, I mean, there's no compulsion from career-wise, but on the other side, there is compulsion that you have to grow, you have to move forward in career, you have to do research. So which one is predominant in your each country?
It's a difficult...
I need an idea about that.
Yeah. At the highest level, I think you want to strive for an existential answer. I do research, therefore I am. Some of that can be through your mentoring and behavioral modeling. They see you and you love your work and you live your work and so forth. So I think it's what you aspire to. Now, part of it has to do with your selection criteria for graduate students. If your program attracts individuals who wish to practice upon graduation, you'll get a slightly different profile of students than if not. So when Harvard Business School decided recently to rejuvenate their doctoral program in business, they did something interesting. Typically, a student comes to the doctoral program because they have the right raw material. They're very intelligent, highly motivated, well organized, so forth. And then they grow into a research topic. And that's always a challenge. What should I study for my dissertation? Harvard says we're going to take someone who's already passionate about the area. Social justice, for example, poverty. And then we're going to bring them in. And then, so where do you start? Passion around a problem, passion around scholarship, passion around career. So part of it might be to the way you market your program, part of it might be the way you attract and mentor those people. But I think it's probably best if even in practice they see themselves as having a scholarly bent, because they're more likely to be good partners. Let me yield the floor to see what you think.
Yes, I can tell you about Germany. It all depends on the current market, on the job market. Yeah, the job market. So it was I don't know 20 years ago. We had problems to find good PhD students because there was a good job market. So afterwards, 10 years ago, then it decreased a lot, and so many people thought of maybe staying at the university and doing research, because in Germany it's a little bit different. PhD students in Germany, they are really acting like an assistant professor or something like this. It's more like a postdoc, I would say. They don't have to do classes or to visit classes. They just have to maybe to give a course and to act as a teacher, and also doing some research, of course, but and also the payment is different. So at that time, a lot of people decided to stay at the university, so we were flooded with a lot of applications. And now, in my field, now it's turning a little bit again, so the job market is becoming better. So you can directly see it on the people and their willingness to do first research and then going to industry or doing another way.
I think I wanted to share that in my leadership class for the past 2 years we have been doing one slogan, one line. It says, helping a child is building a nation. And every semester the new batch comes in and they do the same thing. And I was, when you said democratically ask them, I mean, every student come up with ideas, they come back, now they're in a group together, they work on, it's on the BBA level. Now, they come in the 5th semester, now I'm talking then when they're ready to graduate at the 8th semester. I'm seeing in the past 2 years is that the students are getting into this concept. I think our job also as faculty is to get them introduced to this environment while they are students at the lower level, like all of you are saying. And then you can find out once they get into the masters or whatever, who is going to find the personal interest to be there, or like Dr. Richard said, they're going to use it as a practical, and that's where you give them a proper direction and stream so that they can go into the future. So I think it works out on both sides, like, if you can direct them, guide them, and show them this is what research could be, give them a flavor, and if the student wants it, most of them like it. I mean, they say, okay, sure, we didn't know what we wanted, now we know we want to go there, and so our MS is going up. They're going more and more in MS now that we're getting in the management. So, alumni coming. So
I
please.
think there's a question in the back. Yeah?
Hi everyone, I'm Sana Malik. I'm from School of Architecture and Planning. And I have a question that I would guess everybody has in mind, that we are at this stage in India University Professor that we have to manage the time between teaching and research. So in the expert in these two fields, how do you manage the time between these two? Because these are the really needed tips that we all need.
Time management.
But balancing teaching and research.
Yeah,
Balancing.
how you manage the time between these two? Because both fields are time dedicated.
It's not manageable.
Yeah, we're going in the midnight.
The three-legged stool of teaching, research, and service at a U.S. institution. Yes?
So like I mentioned, my kind of underlying commitments really bleed into all those things. And so I find that I can conduct research with my students, for example. I'm just forming a research group with my students. So that would be one way to kind of multitask a little bit. Some people might call it double dipping, right? But conducting research with students is one way. Or through mentorship, maybe you're working with your students on a research project of their own and like mentoring them through that research process. So that would be kind of one way to...
But writing a proposal, and when you're done with the research and you want to convert it into the writer, that obviously takes time.
Yeah, and so I write with my students often.
You collaborate with them.
Yeah, and so that's one way to mentor and train them and bring them up, right? But it's also, don't tell my students, but you get free help, right? I mean, it's great.
So you do this on both undergraduate and graduate level?
I don't teach, I have no responsibilities over undergraduate students, so I can't speak to that. I only work with PhD students, so maybe others have other ideas.
Want to say anything about balancing? No?
I think about that.
So again, the managers in the room own some of this, right? So when we hire a junior professor in business, we are cautious about the service component, but not completely. And we try to reduce the number of new course preparations. And we give the new faculty member priority in scheduling. So we have flexible schedules. We teach once a week, 5 times. So we try to allow that to happen. Our faculty, though, are managed by accountabilities that they specify, and you can actually give a vector of weights. And if you want to be held more accountable for teaching, you can put more weight there. So faculty have some choice in terms of the relative accountabilities. But all of our faculty expected to perform well in the classroom and expected to perform well from a scholarly point of view. Our teaching loads at Mason are probably average. Okay? So it depends if you have, and we have, interesting, I should say this, in America, hiring someone for tenure is less common now. Okay? In America today, I think the data are greatly clear. Something like 70% of American professors are not tenured or tenure track. So we've been hiring teaching-only professors. 75% teaching accountability, 25% service accountability. So from a management point of view, you need to deliver 210 courses this semester. You have a portfolio of faculty assets, jargon, right? So how do I allocate these? So we have to make sure that the manager creates the culture that supports a balance, as well as the professor who has to make those choices every day and every week, my opinion. I don't know if others.
And those choices have equity issues.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I just want
So there's one question right here, and then we have time for two more. So this will be one and then two, and then we'll be done.
My name is Umar Ayub. I'm assistant professor at School of Business and Economics at University of Management and Technology. Back in Pakistan, we have a lot of pressure from the industry that we should perform such a research that should also benefit to the industry as well. But the industry-academia language leakage has always been a very tricky kind of thing. We perform research at university, but at the end, when we complete our research, the industry hesitate to buy it from the academicians or from the professors. I would like to have your suggestions how this linkage or your connection or the relationship can be improved.
There's two levels on this. Our office has sponsored programs at Mason, owns that conversation, and there's something called a contract. Start with that. So if your organization doesn't have that office, you're on your own. But around here, something about the deal, going in, during, and out, is specified.
Yes.
So get it in writing. That would be my advice. Go ahead. Yes, sir?
Yes, from my experiences, you don't have to, you don't want to lead your research too much by industry. The industry wants to have a product. Taking the university or people from university as a kind of service provider, you don't want to have them. So in my experiences, it's good to have, to build a kind of, maybe finding in the industry, if you're contacting industry, finding a group that are more also interested in research. And maybe to do something on, building some prototypes or doing some, things that are not very focused on the product itself. It's trying to find a delegation of the industry that is more interested in research, and then you can find a good balance between your research, your interests, and that what could be helpful for the industry.
There was one last question, yes?
No, it's not a question. It's just one comment to continue with Sana's. I'm Dr. Satya, Associate Professor representing Institute of Clinical Psychology. I believe that teaching and research are not two separable things. They go side by side. In every course outline in our institute, course syllabi, there is a one component of contemporary research trends. Whether it is school psychology, whether it is adult psychology, whatever part of clinical psychology it is. So I don't see these two things as tedious, separate, because they go hand by hand. This is one comment I wanted to make. Thank you.
So I want to give the panelists an opportunity to sort of say some final thoughts. This is your last chance to, not your last chance, but in this forum, your last opportunity. If there's anything else that you'd like to make a comment about, how you approach your research in ways in which you think, this endeavor of collaboration between our two institutions can flourish. Your advice.
Oh, sure.
It's been a real pleasure to speak with you today, and I hope we continue these conversations. I'm so new, I don't even have business cards, so I wrote a few Post-it notes with my information on it. But you're welcome to also ask Becky and others. I just quickly wanted to say, I guess my one piece of parting new wisdom or advice would be to do what you love. I know that's starry-eyed. Do what you're passionate about as in terms of research. You will never go wrong. My grandfather said to many of us grandkids as we were growing up, do what you love and you'll never work, right? Do what you love and become great at it, and somebody will pay you for it, right? And so that I think is really, really important. So as you're looking for funding, yeah, maybe add a few keywords or trendy words or things like that, but don't totally change what you're doing to fit the funding profile. Do what you love, do what you're passionate about. That will make the world a better place. It will make your corner of the world a better place. It will make your students better people. And so that's kind of my parting love.
Wonderful. Yes.
So I make it short. So I also very appreciate to be here and to discuss with you on the opportunities. I would be very interested or would be happy if we, I don't know how the program will be handled in the future or how it continues, but I would be very happy to start also some collaboration with you and
we can share your contact information.
Yes,
okay,
I just have one business card I have here.
I'll take it and I will distribute this.
That's great.
So,
Just a final thought, and it's obvious, scholarly work is difficult and sometimes frustrating. It's very hard to be rejected, and you'll be rejected a lot because that's the way we operate in our major difficult journals to get into. So I would encourage you to have a portfolio of work. It's about flow as well as stock. And if you have only one project or one writing opportunity, it's not so good. You need to have a portfolio of work products, some collaborative, some individual, some across the time. I just encourage you to think in terms of that portfolio approach. It'll help you in the long run. Just a thought.
Well, if everybody could join me in thanking our wonderful panelists for this. Thank you. Thank you.
On behalf of UMT, I would really like to thank the panelists. Thank you very much for your precious time.
I would like to also, on behalf of this grant, thank you all for your time, for your expertise, for all you have shared. This really is a collaboration. That's the name of this grant. And to us, we are also having the opportunity to live something that's very passionate for us, which is international work. And if we are going to make a difference in the world, if we are going to live out this university for the world, and as Mark told you this morning, innovation is tradition, and just some of those words, to live those out is something that we have to do as a person-to-person endeavor. And that's also when our research and our scholarship and our teaching all come together, as well as our service. I want to really thank Meagan, Matthias, and Richard for sharing their personal histories and their scholarship with us. And I very much want to thank Jen for the masterful job she did of pulling this panel together and moderating it. It was an amazing, amazing job. If any of our colleagues back in Pakistan are watching our streaming, we want to say hello to you back in Lahore. We miss you and we bring you with us. And for those who will be watching it on video, we also want to say farewell. We are going to be having a lunch after this. I want to thank, as always, Karen and Mary Beth for all they've done. Anastasia had to run to a meeting. Seems to be the way of life at universities. But she'll be back shortly. And so we invite you to, in just a few minutes after we do a slight bit of unwrapping in the back, have you join us for sandwiches. And please continue the dialogue. We have lots of doctoral students with us, we have faculty with us, and faculty partners. And Jen, thank you so much. You did a fabulous job. Thank you. Great to hear from you. I'm really glad you came up. So I really do. I'm not sure if you I can do that before we get out. Matthias has to go. Really